What's going on, Chris? You are you have been very patient
Yeah.
with getting a hold of me. I am the worst when it comes to anything Facebook, so thank you for being patient. I was literally like, oh, I have like a million messages and Messenger I have to go through. I have a half brother that had sent me something, and I'm like, oh my God, look at all these people. Should probably respond. But hey, how you doing, man? I looked you up. You've been doing this for a little bit, huh?
Yeah, since fall 2020.
Nice, nice. And so how long have you been an anime fan?
Mm, Gosh, probably since I was like 4.
Four. Who exposed you to anime at four?
Well, it was just, I mean, it started from, Pokemon, which people don't really realize is anime. And then
Oh yes, it's very
just
much
went,
anime.
just went from that.
Wow, wow. So well, I can see where Pokemon and were you ever into Digimon?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I was in Digimon. I was in the second season of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
That was a long time ago. We actually, funny, the pandemic has been a very strange thing because right when we were gearing up, I think for the 20th anniversary of season two, the pandemic struck.
Mhm.
So we had a ton of different conventions lined up for that. But, it's interesting. I think everybody at the beginning of the pandemic, as far as voice actors were concerned, we were all kind of like, it's going to happen. We can't go anyplace. We can't. But and as evidence of what we're doing today, everybody kind of had to adapt and become a little bit more technically involved with their computers and recording themselves. And I know for me, it was a very steep learning curve. In fact, this is a brand new system I'm working with you
Oh,
on right now. I just set this up this past week. So, it's just finding new ways to make it a better kind of experience overall.
mhm.
So that we can do stuff like this. So how did you start interviewing people? Did you just reach out to them on Facebook like you did with me, or?
Well, it started when I virtually met a voice actor that I was a fan of via GalaxyCon in April 2020. And then
Okay.
I was just thinking that, a lot of the voice actors that I'm personally a fan of, I really hadn't seen them talk about the roles that I liked them the most for. So then
Right.
the first one in LA that I did was Wendy Lee, and
Okay.
that just snowballed from there. So
Wendy was the OG TK dub in
right.
Digimon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love Wendy. Wendy has been I've known her for so long. I've known her just as a voice actress. I've known her as a director. She is the sweetest woman. In fact, the first in studio gig I did during this whole pandemic was it was the studio that basically I would just walk in and walk directly into the room, and it wasn't just like a little small booth like I'm in right now. It was a massive soundstage where they would do Foley and stuff like that. So that was really cool. It was like I had a theater screen.
Mhm.
And Wendy played opposite me. We recorded a live action series, and she was literally the first person I hugged at the tail end of this pandemic, if we call that the tail end. So yes, so I love me some Wendy Lee. She is my soul sister. I love her. And then you've done another one of my friends, Yuri
Yeah.
Lowenthal. You've done quite a few people. I think I see you interviewed Aaron Fitzgerald.
She was pretty early too.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, man. So you just keep on reaching out and saying, hey, I want to talk.
Pretty much.
Respond, please.
It
Cool,
was
cool,
fun.
cool.
It was cool too. Last July I got to be the first to do Bridget Hoffman, and she had never done one before.
Bridget Hoffman. Wait, what has she voiced? I met her. I know she's from Michigan.
She was in Digimon too.
Okay.
She took over one of the people that did Patamon.
Oh, God, I should know that, right? Because I played TK.
Yeah.
I just virtually met for the first time. Oh my God, and I'm gonna forget her name. The woman that did Patamon from the beginning. My God,
Laura Summer.
yes, yes. I was seeing her face. I wasn't seeing her name. Yeah, so that was really sweet. I was like, oh my God, you're the person. Oh my God, and that's just the way it is. Unless we, back in the day when we were recording in studio, unless we were, passing each other in the hall or in the waiting room, conventions are the only other way to see everybody, or if we have like a rap party or something like that. So let me ask you, what do you know about me? What do you know about the stuff I've done?
Well, the stuff that I personally like you for, I've never seen you really talk about. So
Okay, talk to me. Maybe I'll remember. Who knows?
well,
Give me a shot. What do you got?
well, I can just start from the beginning. And was Funhouse Mystery how you got into SAG?
Funhouse Mystery. What is that?
That's the Mary Kate and Ashley.
Yeah, that's actually the first thing that I've ever done that was aired as far as like voiceover concerned. I did a bunch of like Digimon behind the scenes stuff, or like, the monster of the episode. Yeah, that was really the first thing that kind of got out there. And I, quite honestly, I hadn't seen it until maybe it came out 12, 15 years later. I had no idea that there was going to be somebody lip syncing the song. I don't know if you've seen the actual, yeah, it's pretty corny. But yeah, it was funny. That's actually, as we've been doing a bunch of conventions already this year, we've been, as one of the questions, what was your first gig? That is one of my first gigs that actually got out there. I did sing another song for it was a pilot that never came out. I played an ant singing a song called Picnic Time in El Paso. That was good times. And then there was another project. I'm going to forget everybody in it, but I was pretty naive when I first came out here and started getting into voiceover, because I really didn't recognize that as a viable career. I had no idea. I mean, I knew, I love cartoons, and I knew that people did it, but I didn't know that that was something that I could do, which is stupid because I'd really been doing voices all my life. I did some student radio. I did, the announcements over the PA in the morning during high school. People hated me for that. It was fun. Yeah, I didn't realize that it was something that I could do. And I remember one of my good friends back in the late 90s, I think this was before Digimon. She's like, yeah, my cousin does stuff on Animaniacs. She's like, and he'd like to talk to you about some project. He was doing there were two projects. One was forget where it was from. It was a show called The Houndlings. And I didn't realize when he asked me to do it. I did a audition for him. I didn't realize that I was going to be playing the lead in this thing. I don't think it ever aired, but that I was going to be with Rob Paulson, Maurice LaMarche, the big, I think Billy West was he on it? So like I did this pilot where it was live action dogs, and it was really silly, but I played the lead Chihuahua, I guess. And I couldn't, like, it took me several years to recognize who I had worked with on this project. And I blew it because I lost contact with him. I was just like, yeah, whatever, and I like forgot about it. And then years later, I was like, you're a idiot. So yeah, so the first thing that really actually came out was that that song, Mommies Have Mummies Too. Digimon probably started up thereafter. I think I'm getting the timeline correct. I'm not positive, but yeah. And I did, I did some of the monsters of the day, drive all the way out to Valencia to play some crazy, clown monster or shark monster or whatever it was. So that was kind of how I cut my teeth in this industry. So, and it's fun. I can't, there are some roles that are more difficult than others, but at this point I've got very much kind of a wheelhouse that I have a periphery of characters I can do. And so usually when I'll get audition notices, I'll kind of know immediately what Okay, I'm not gonna waste my time trying to read for these. I usually don't go for the young hero anymore because there's a ton of guys that can do those voices. It's more of a strain for me at this point, you know. Puberty. Who knew?
Well, beside Digimon Rumble Arena, was Dot Hack Infection your first video game?
I might have done something before that.
You played Balmung, the really pretty angel guy that Crispin Freeman took over in the other game.
Yes. I ended up going back to Michigan, I think, for a winter to help my dad. He was building condominiums and he was a general contractor. And so I went home and apparently they had tried contacting me to reprise it. And I think that's how Crispin ended up taking over it for me.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was some time ago. Yeah. God, I don't even remember that. I know where we recorded it. It was at something 8. Again, this is 20 plus years ago, so forgive me. Sure. Yeah, why not? I doubt I had that clear of a picture of him when I recorded him. Okay. I think it was, they probably just showed me like a figure that was like off to the side on the some of the characters I remember from way back then. Some of them I'm like one shot, you only see a little picture, you kind of forget. So what else you got, man?
This was just a one episodic thing, but Vampire Princess Miu. I can give you the rundown of so your episode was you played this guy that was in love with the mermaid after you just got dumped by Melissa Fawn. And then the mermaid.
I was dumped by Melissa Fawn?
Yeah.
Melissa Fawn has always been my little anime crush. Oh no, I just spilled it. But yeah, I always had a crush on her.
And the mermaid ends up eating your character, and then Dorothy Fawn kills it, and that's the episode.
Sister-in-law comes in to swoop in to be the victor. I love it. Well, I will have to next time I see Melissa and Dot, I'll have to say, hey, thanks guys, you really ruined my life.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep going, because you're reminding me of what I had done possibly way in the past.
I would think that like one of your first more dramatic leads that you got to do a lot with was Musica and Rave Master.
Yes, that was actually really fun because so Yuri and I, Yuri Lowenthal and I met on we did a show called SD Gundam. I played kind of like Captain Gundam, kind of the lead hero-y guy, and Yuri was brought on. The director also taught voice class, and Yuri was from his class. And so it was funny. I remember seeing him and I was like, who's this guy? He was like my height. We generally had if you saw, us from a distance, you'd think we were the same guy. I was like, I don't think I like this guy. And, I would hear his stuff and I was like, yeah, he was good. We became fast friends. And then the next thing you know, we were both cast in Rave Master, and he was what the hell was his character's name? Haru, right. And then Michelle was the girl, which was so much fun. So it's been really, really kind of cool to see how everybody's kind of developed over the years since these shows came out. I mean, it was a while ago. Yeah. So let me see. I'm looking at my what else would you remember from back in the day?
Hajime no Ippo.
Say that again.
Hajime no Ippo, the one that's about boxing.
Yes, that was called something else.
Fighting Spirit, I think.
Fighting Spirit. Yes. What was my character's name? Takashi. Yes. Yeah, that was interesting. That was Steve Staley, wasn't it? Whenever you do these sports shows, it's such an interesting take how the Japanese storytellers kind of create all of this minutia that surrounds the actual sport, that it's like, it's not even, you can take these stories and kind of plug them into other things, because it's all about character arc. It's all about, that struggle, that fight to get to the next level. It's that Rocky, the underdog, that has to come, fight through some obstacle and then come out the victor on the end, you know, the better man, whatever. And I just remember with that show, I was like, come on. It felt to me like it was like, you're explaining too much. Let's get them to fight. I want to fight. I want to fight. But it was all about, oh, you know, they were studying each other and they were always doing this stuff that was like, you know, just trying to outthink the other guy. And so it was interesting. But after a while, I was getting impatient. I was like, come on, fight.
Yeah. I think it was right before Naruto. You got to be a really big villain in Overman King Gainer.
Yes, Asuhem Boon.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my first shows that I really worked with Tony Oliver extensively. I've known Tony. I had known so how I got started in the business was when I first moved out to Los Angeles. I had planned on being an on-camera actor because, you know, I'm gorgeous. Look at this face. But I ended up working for an entertainment company called Saban Entertainment. And, you know, they were doing the Power Rangers and all this stuff back then. And I really didn't consider voiceover until, you know, I knew the girls in casting and a couple of composers. And that's how I got into singing the songs and stuff, because I was the assistant to the senior VP of music. So it's like, it was fun. It was exciting, you know, because we were, you know, the Digimon movie came out and we got to set up all the different, you know, artists and musicians that were going to play, you know, Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was just a really cool time. And then getting into the voiceover thing was, you know, interesting because I knew most of the people already that I was going to end up working with them on the other side of the microphone. So I had known Tony for ages. I knew Tony, like he would come to me to request stuff from, you know, my boss. So it was like I knew him on a different level. But that was recorded at Bang Zoom, and I remember that was the first time, like, I was like, oh my God, this guy's really like an actor's director.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tony is one of those guys that, like myself, came with a very with a theater background. A lot of voice actors do. And you know, he really was like, wasn't just about, you know, the mechanics of lip syncing, which is hard enough already, but he was like really getting into the character and really getting me to act and really like pushing me. And it's like, I was like, you know, there were a couple times I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, but it all made sense. And, you know, now that I have thicker skin and that doesn't affect me anymore, but it's like, you really appreciate that when you have a director that is so engrossed with the story. You know, that's what we depend on when we go into dub anything, is we need to know. They don't really give us the scripts ahead of time. Some shows, now that we're doing remote recording, we'll get the materials ahead of time, which is great because we can actually get to know the story a little bit better. But usually when it's studio stuff, we just walk in and it's like we pick up from where we left off. You really depend on the director to guide you because, you know, sometimes there will be you know, an end goal to an episode, and your character has to know the thing that's going to happen, and that has to be, you know, relayed in the way you're speaking. You know, it's a little bit more of a subtle thing. And Tony was that director that was like really the guy that pushed me. I was like, wow, you know, it's my favorite recording is for original animation.
Yeah.
But when I get to work with Tony, like, he's the best director for dub for me. I mean, I know he might be hard for some other people because he's very specific, but a lot of fun. And, you know, now I get to work with him on Lupin the Third, and sometimes he'll direct that. I know he was directing it for a while this past season. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of taking over this interview.
Well, I was speaking of Tony. I know he got to direct you in probably my single favorite role of yours, which was like Kayneth in the Fate.
El Malloy from, what the hell was that from?
It was Fate Zero first.
Fate Zero, right. And then we ended up doing the offshoot where I did some what was it, kind of flashback stuff for, that was an interesting character. I love playing bad guys. bad guys, you know, it was a little gruesome at that point where, what were they doing? Like cracking his hand or something like, yeah, it was just like, there was some stuff in that that was pretty intense, but you know, the bad guys are always fun. I think they're always, it's fun to layer them with kind of, you know, your own deceit and your own anger, and kind of, you know, it's therapy really. You can kind of act out your frustrations in these, through these characters. But yeah, thank you. That's a role I rarely talk about. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is the case where you've had to get the darkest emotional headspace for a character?
You know, I can't say Geen because Geen is from Bleach. Geen is kind of such a superficial character, and that's his charm, if you will. But from the beginning of doing that character, there was always a secret that he had, that you could tell there was a reason why he was so, you know, I mean, the guy barely ever opened his eyes. He was poker faced most of the time. He had a smile on his face during everything, you know, and it was that mask he wore because he had a huge secret. I never really played him super evil, because he really wasn't super evil. He just ends up being a pawn in a larger story. Are you familiar with Blazblue?
Yeah.
That was, I played Hazama / Terami in that.
Right.
That was probably the closest I'll get to the Joker kind of voice. That was pretty dark in a sense that when you know, when the gloves came off, this guy was brutal and very brutal. You know, a lot of that has to do with the way that the adaptation was you know, written. I believe Patrick Seitz did most of the he directed me and did most of the scripts for that. I would say he had such a wide range that I felt when he got really dark, it was brutal. I mean, but it was usually Terami stuff. It was in when he was getting into the fights and stuff like that. But like, you know, I love the bad guys. I don't ever play the bad guys evil though, because you know, the difference between a good guy and a bad guy, well, the similarity between a good guy and the bad guy is that they both think they're right. The bad guys are usually a lot more self-assured than the good guys are, your young protagonist, because they're usually already so settled into who they are that it's not their journey to discover themselves. It's the protagonist. And the bad guy is always the one that they reflect themselves off of. You know, whatever, like the Joker and Batman, it's the chaos versus order. It's like, you know, but they both share all these similar aspects to their characters, that they're almost like, you know, two sides of the same coin. Stuff like Lupin, where I play Zenigata, you know, look at that show. The thief is the good guy. Zenigata, who is the police chief, is the bad guy. Why? Because he's trying to get our protagonist. But that's why it's such a beautiful show, is that our bad guy is the good guy. You know, our thief, the guy that's breaking the law every way, but you know, Tuesday, and then here comes Zenigata, who is the police chief that's trying to chase his ass down, and he's the bad guy. You know, he's the guy that you're rooting against most of the time, you know, because he catches Lupin and puts him away forever, and that's the end of the show, right? But I would say probably, you know, there are some video games where I'll do these different monster characters that are just rage filled and all that stuff, but that's just so difficult to sustain because it rips your throat out. Like my voice is a little bit hoarse right now because I worked on something on Friday. Some of the characters that are the bad guys are just so ambiguous, you can't really tell. There was a show we did called Kegister of an Insect Cage.
Yeah.
Did you see that at all?
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. I played a character, Petrov, who was kind of the bad guy, kind of the intermediary between the good guys and like knew a little bit more of the story than the protagonist did, with that knowledge was able to manipulate people. And that's what I think is the most fun about playing the bad guys, is that there is that, they're fuckers, pardon my French. They know how to manipulate people. And typically they'll try to get into the protagonist, the good guy's head. And that's when you've got a good, duo, is when they kind of both complete each other, and that's what that in storytelling, that's really what it all boils down to. Is it's the hero's journey, how the bad guy is everything that the good guy fears, and how he has to overcome it and best the bad guy in the end, and that's really, the bad guy is him, it's really the his inner self-loathing, hatred, and fear. So yeah, but playing heroes is great too. I love to play the heroes with a little bit of an edge, like Asuma from Naruto. The interesting thing about him is that he smoked. I was a smoker during when I started that role, and so I regretted that he smoked, because I did quit halfway through. It changed my voice, and I always felt like I couldn't really reach that same gravelly depth to it. But what I loved about that character, and what I've kind of discovered more through the conventions that I've been attending, has been that the character of Asuma, for those not familiar, he was one of the senseis in Naruto, Choji, Inoue, and Shikamaru, and he had a kind of an untimely passing, which really affected a lot of people. I didn't recognize until this past year how much the character of Asuma was such a surrogate father figure for a lot of kids growing up watching that. And, I would have people come up to me and just be like, "You were my dad," and crying, and like it being like, that was such an impactful thing the day Asuma passed away on the show. And, when you're able to be a part of something that, is such a an integral part of people's childhood, you respect it more, because a lot of times it's just a job. You think, oh, okay, well, this is just a job. I get to go in, I get to record, I get to have fun, maybe make the sound engineer and the director laugh, and that's my 2 hours in the booth, and then I go on to the next job, and so on and so forth. And usually at that point, because there hasn't been a lot of interaction between myself and fans, that's it. I'm happy with what I do. But now that I've really kind of gotten into going to conventions, it's such a different world, because I'm able to see, wow, how much these shows affect people. And, I should know this. I'm a dad to an amazing 4-year-old, and, he has to watch Paw Patrol every day. And he is like, these characters are so real to him and so impactful to him that he'll have these memories for the rest of his life, So now the real trick is for me to try to get my son into a show that I do. And we've tried.
Yeah.
I don't think I would expose him to any anime quite yet.
No.
Of mine. There's a couple kids shows that I do. I did Care Bears. I do a show called Deer Squad on Nickelodeon. I play the bad guy in that.
You get to be with Julie Madalena.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love her. She's so great. I do stuff with Mattel, and one of my kids' favorite toys are Hot Wheels. And so that's all I can tell you is I'm going to be doing some Hot Wheels stuff. So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
My son, that was like the first time my kid got into it. He was like, and so I got the actual item that I was playing, and he's like so stoked because he could hold it in his hand, and like now he even says, I can't say it, but now he even says my call out that my character does. So it's pretty dope when your kid finally starts. It's like, oh, thank God it's a car. That's all my kid is into, is cars.
Yeah.
So yeah. What else, man?
Well, going back to Naruto, I don't think many people know that you're originally up for Sasuke and you played Kiba first before Kyle Aber did.
Yes, I was up for Sasuke. Where did you hear this? I think my take would have probably been a little bit darker than his. Probably closer to Squall from Kingdom Hearts slash Final Fantasy. Not as deep as that character as far as the vocals, but no, I mean Yuri, he's like, dude, I got it. And I'm like, you fucker. And he's like, yeah, but you know why? I'm like, why? Because you're great. And he goes, no, it's because I spoke to the producers in Japanese. And I was like, you got me. No, but it worked out for the best. I mean, Yuri's amazing. I love this guy. It's funny. He's literally probably a week younger than me, but he's like my little brother. I love Yuri. Yeah. And so yeah, I ended up playing. I said, well, at least I get to play an adult on the show. But wait, so wait, I'm sorry. Kiba, who's Kiba?
He's the guy that Kyle Aber plays with the little dog, Akamaru.
I gotta look this up.
He's one of the other main characters.
Did I?
Yeah, you played him for his debut episode.
I did? Really?
Where he just laughs and that's it.
Oh. Where was I credited with that? Does it say it someplace?
Anime News Network.
You know, it's probably because they missed it.
Okay.
When they were, I mean, this is probably literally what happened. They probably missed it. They had probably already recorded all of Kyle's stuff. And they're like, shit. They're like, Doug, can you do, they would probably played me his stuff so I could do the laugh. I'm sure that's what happened.
Okay.
I'm sure I wasn't cast as the role. No, I'm sure, because that happens all the time where it's like they'll miss a cue and they'll be like, oh no. And it'll be during your session. And they'll be like, hey, can you do an impression of such and such? And I'll be like, yeah, well, play it for me. And so that's probably what happened, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. and with Bleach, on the topic of Michael Lindsay, did you know him very well?
I didn't know Michael super well. I mean, I knew him just through, passing and everything. Sad, I ended up taking over his roles before he passed. I'm not sure if a lot of people knew that, but he had ended up leaving LA, and the producers were basically like, hey, can you do, these, they just thought I sounded the closest to him. And I said, sure. That's a very hard thing to do, is to take over roles from somebody that's been very well established. And when you're trying to do a voice match, because you're never going to do it right. You're always going to sound off. People are going to get mad at you. I remember when it first started airing, I think it was Kisuke, yes, that I'd done in Bleach. And I was on YouTube and this video popped up and the title was "Fuck You, Doug Erholtz." And I was like, oh, click. I want to see what this is about. And so it was some guy that was wearing a, the group Anonymous, right? Where the mask that's like I forget, it's from like V for Vendetta or whatever it is. He was wearing a mask and just ranting about how much he hated me for taking this role away from Michael Lindsay, not knowing anything about the story behind it. And so I contacted him and I said, that's not cool. I said, you can be angry. I understand. You don't know the story. So let me, and he's like, prove who you are. And I'm like, yeah. So I proved it to him. And he's like, oh my God. And I said, just, you know what? Keep the video up, but can you just get rid of the title? Because I have nephews and I don't need them to like open up YouTube and see that. I said, your opinion's great, but can you just, profusely apologize, took down the video. I told him the story. I said, these are things that life is life. We can't always, I wish he was still fulfilling those roles, but he he left town. He's no longer in the business anymore. That was his choice. And so, yeah, it's, you know, it's sad because you do the best that you can, but then after a while, it's like you are so pigeonholed into trying to sound like somebody else that it's everything else suffers. The acting suffers, the lip syncing suffers a little bit because you're so conscious of that. And then after a while, you just have to kind of find a happy medium, you know, where you're like, okay, I'm going to make it a little bit more me, a little bit more me, so I can just generate enough, you know, energy here to actually make it all look right on the screen. And I get it. I know, you know, it's like I've taken over characters taken over roles from other people, and it's a crapshoot. You never know. Here's what I feel. We didn't originate the roles in the first place on anime. Nobody did. It was the Japanese actor. So shut up. That's what it really is. I think dub actors, we are basically aftermarket customization. That's really what we are. There's a very different subtlety to a Japanese conversation that as loud Americans we don't really capture. It's like I always consider it's like a Nirvana song. It's like subtle, and then big, you know, subtle, and big, you know. And so and you see that they you know enhance that with the little sweat bead or the little, you know, and it's like that's part of that expression. American actors, we are, you know, we have a different society that is more about projecting and being less orderly. You know, we're all about freedom here, express yourself. And that's why I think it's always going to be a little bit different from the Japanese to the dub. But, you know, I don't care if people like the sub better. Some things I like sub better too. I got to be honest.
Well, one of the games that you were a part of that, again, I hadn't seen you talk about, that always stood out to me when I was younger and even now because the writing was so well done was you played Udo in Xenosaga.
Yes, that was a trippy character.
Really creepy.
Yeah, right. Wendy directed me in that. I remember, God, I don't even think I auditioned for that. I get there, it was at a company called Cup of Tea was the studio. And I was like, so do you have any art? I wanted to see what the character looked like. And she's like, well, there really isn't a face or anything. It's just kind of a being. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you know that Michael Jackson kind of voice you do? And I'm like, no, I've never done that. She's like, you're really soft spoken, kind of ethereal. That's what we need. And I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea what I was coming in to record. So yeah, that was a trip. That was kind of a trip because that was more of a very much an out of body kind of place to go with a character. And yeah, I'm glad I got the opportunity to do it because, you know, that's what you love about being a voice actor is stretching, you know. I always tell this going along with the video games. I was in Street Fighter. I play Vega. And so I knew I had auditioned for a bunch of the characters in it, but I never recorded for Vega. So I get to this, they just call me and they say, hey, we got some work for you, blah, blah, blah. And I get there and I'm like, so what am I playing? And they're like, character named Vega. They're like, how's your Spanish accent? And I'm like, great. Great. And so they're like, he's Spanish. And I'm like, okay, Spanish. Who do I know that speaks Spanish from Spain? I'm like, Antonio Banderas. So I, on the spot, had to I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing an Antonio Banderas, a sexy Antonio Banderas voice for this. And they bought it. I'm like, okay, I've come back for a couple other games. So apparently, you know, and anything like that, if I see in the comments that somebody's like, oh my God, his accent was awful, blah, 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 blah. I never have read that, which is funny to me because I'm sure it's just awful. to an actual Spaniard, they're probably like, what is this shit, you know? But yeah, so that was interesting. I mean, you know, and I got to stretch, and now I'm more comfortable with that voice, you know. So it's kind of, I do a characterization of my own voice at this point. So yeah.
Well, I know there's a lot of fan affinity too, still with Python and the Fire Emblem
You
franchise.
know, yeah, so again, that was with Cup of Tea Productions. Usually with that character, there's two characters that I've done that the writing has been exceptional for me. Python from Fire Emblem, and Hazama from Blazblue. And it's either been Patrick has been the director and writer, or I think he's been the writer, and then like Christian, I forget his last
Lamont.
name. Yes, has been the director. And Python is the closest to me out of any of the characters I've ever done, as far as like him just being a bullshitter and just kind of being like, well, you know, whatever, we're gonna just, hey, you know, and he had just this affable kind of slacker, kind of like, I don't give a shit. You know, he was a little bit, in my opinion, out of time. Like he could have been a, you know, a 90s aught kid. You know, he was less of the, he was very much the anti-hero, very much the, you know, zero sense of duty, but loyalty to his friends. He was always trying to play it off like he was, you know, this renegade just doing it for the money. I was, you know, he can dip in and out whenever he wants, but his loyalty to his friends were really what made the biggest difference to him.
Mhm.
And I just loved his, you know, his dialogue, because it was such an easy place for me to be, and the dialogue was really the one interesting thing that I found through reading some of the comments was that there was this huge debate on if Python was gay, bi, or straight. And I'm like, how is this up for debate? And then I see some of the stuff that they're talking about, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that that's how that was being interpreted.
Mm.
And so, you know, you never go, like, I played characters that are obviously from even their design are gay, which is fine. You know, if there are actually people in the gay community that don't like what I do, please tell me, because if you find it offensive, that's cool. That's the one thing that if I ever portray a character that is of a different gender, of a different um orientation, of a different race or whatever, it's my interpretation of what it is. And if it's wrong, if it offends, I'll stop. You know what I mean? But I have a lot of friends that are gay. My wife and I are very much in that community. We know a lot of people that are, my best man was gay, still is. So that has always been my, you know, barometer, is if my friends would laugh at it, if they wouldn't find it offensive, then it's usually great. You know what I mean? And so for like Python, when I found out that people were kind of putting that on him, I was like, yeah, I guess, you know, it's all kind of there. When it comes down to it, whatever the interpretation of the audience is, great. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do like it, great, thank you. If you don't, just be nice about it. If you're gonna say, you know what I'm saying, that's all. But yeah, Python to me was such a joy, because he just really shot the shit most of the time. And you know, everybody loves a slacker. So, and he was probably a really crappy archer from what I hear. Did you ever play the game, or
Yeah, I have.
was he?
Yeah.
I would always hear that is like, oh my God, you've just got to stick with him for like so many different campaigns, and then he finally gets better after, you know. And I think the true blue fans that just wanted to hear his cut scenes, I think that they were the ones that stuck with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
What else, man?
well, did I have to bring up Squall, of course, but when you first got that role, I take it that was voice matching David Boreanaz.
Not really.
Okay.
They did play me his character, but I think I really relied more on the Japanese because David, my voice isn't that similar to David's as far as what I did with the character. I think his was more emotive than mine was. And the point with, again, the point with Squall was that he had such a backstory of, that I could actually relate to. He was an orphan. I was adopted at birth. There was always that feeling of not kind of fitting in. He was a loner. I went through that phase growing up, and so that was, a lot of what, kind of informed my choices for him. And maybe David didn't have a chance to really go that deep into the character because he only did it once. But yeah, no, I think my take on it was very much more stoic, very much more closer to the Japanese, because the Japanese voice actor who was always really flat, and not in like a bad way, but in a very like, he's not gonna waste too much emotional energy on something because he feels like he's always gonna get effed in the end. You know what I'm saying? He can't depend on anybody, so he can only depend on himself. And so that's why, like, through the different, Final Fantasy specifically, not everybody likes Squall. Not everybody can handle his, the way he functions. And I get that, he's not a fun, joyous character to be around, but he does serve his purpose. And in my opinion, he's one of the coolest mother effers in the whole damn thing. He's kind of got the coolest outfit. I mean, let's be honest. So, and apparently he was one of the first characters that was created for Final Fantasy. He was based on River Phoenix.
Yeah,
who was an actor back in the day. But you probably already knew that.
Well, everybody else that I've talked to too, that's been a lead, like a bigger character in the Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy games, so that those specific auditions or landing those roles are very, very, very particular, like the recording process.
Yeah, and quite honestly, they may replace me. I have no idea. I haven't been involved with it in a while. I know that there's some stuff coming out, but I know a couple of the other actors have been replaced already. So it is what it is. I mean, I replaced somebody, so yeah, I mean, there are some parts that you are very much connected to. Like I think with Lupin at this point, I don't think that they're gonna, cast the rest of the cast and not include me as Zenigata now. We've done enough where it's kind of like I'm a part of the package deal. And I took over the role of Zenigata from somebody else too. One of my favorite bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Are you familiar with them? Okay. My favorite guitarist they've ever played with, John Frusciante, he's back with the band. It's what everybody loves. It's what I've been waiting for too. And their album came out recently, and I've been hearing it, and I'm like, this is it. This is the stuff. They did a couple albums with another guitarist, and they've gone on tour, but this is what I was waiting for. And it's like when you get the right cast together, when you get the right crew together, it's magic. And that's what I think. That's kind of what we have with Lupin. With other shows like Naruto, and I can't really say that. Because that was such a vast, expansive show, just like Bleach was. It's hard to kind of get that unless you're one of the 3 to 5 major characters. You don't get that real camaraderie because, you're not in recording every week like maybe Johnny Young Bosch was, or maybe Miley Flanagan, So, but when it's like a show like this, where it's like the gang's all back, and it's, and we're doing conventions together and doing all that stuff. That's where it's like really fun. Do you go to many conventions or?
I haven't for quite a while, but I'm local in the Minneapolis area. I know you were just here for Anime Detour.
Why didn't you come down, man? You should have come down. Yeah, it was a good convention. This was probably my third convention that I've ever done.
Oh, okay.
Well, where I did that many panels. Yeah. We started last November. We did anime New York City. And now what else do we have going on? I got a bunch in California. Well, you're gonna have to come out to California, man.
Yeah.
Well, oh, you are in Minneapolis?
I'm like 25 miles outside of the cities.
Where?
Do you know where Woodbury? Have you heard of that?
No, I know. I mean, I have spent many a summer and winter in Minnesota.
Okay.
Grand Rapids, Duluth.
Yeah.
My dad went to Bemidji State. My dad's whole side of the family is from there.
Okay.
So it can be beautiful, but so cold
Yeah.
in the winter. I remember we would ice fish. I mean, it gorgeous. You know, if you're a hunter or an outdoorsman, it's great. But I think that because I grew up in Michigan, I was like going, ugh, I can handle snow for a little bit. I used to snow ski and do all that stuff. But like after a while, it's just like, oh, come on. How is it there right now?
It's actually not that bad. It's 60 here today.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah.
We had 2 days ago in LA, it was 98 degrees. And then the day before was 97. And today, I think it just broke 70.
Wow.
It's schizophrenic, man. It's very bizarre. And that's the sucky thing about recording from home is that, you know, we don't have like a ventilation shaft in my booth that I can pump in air conditioning. So it gets very hot. So that's why, you know, I usually wear boxer shorts or a tank top when I'm recording.
Yeah.
The commute is great, though. I can't complain about the commute. I walk into the office.
Yeah. Well, some other ones that I really hadn't seen you talk about in Nura, Rise of the Yokai Clan.
Yes, I played a weird crow person, right?
Yeah.
Was that it? Yeah. That was bizarre. It's always fun to play, you know, characters that are non-human. Yeah. I think I remember that.
I know
I did. Go ahead.
I know you got it was cool that you got to be part of Sailor Moon in some way.
Yeah, what did I do? I think I did, was it Tuxedo Guy or some weird? No, I played a twin or something like that. Yeah. It's so funny because, you know, like I'll be listed for doing stuff in shows and I'll be like, I don't remember doing that. And then it's like you will remind me, I'll be like, oh yeah. Yeah, what did we do recently that somebody was like, hey, oh, did you ever get a chance to see Dorohedoro?
Yeah, Chota.
Dude, yeah. One of my gay characters. Yeah. The animation, that was one of the shows that I've actually watched. Okay. The animation on that was so sick. I loved it. Most of the shows I have a hard time maintaining. If there's something that is like, you know, like Bleach or Naruto, unless you're there from the very beginning watching every episode, it's really hard for me to follow because I'm recording so much stuff that it's like you have to invest a lot of brain power into watching something from the beginning just so you get kind of a sequential where the story's at because they go all over the place. But yeah, Dorohedoro, I was always like, this is such a wild show. And just with how gory it is, and you know, that to me was like, oh yeah, this is something I want to get into. My personal aesthetic is stuff like stuff they do with like Love, Death, and Robots. Have you seen that on?
Oh, yeah.
There was another anime that came out recently based on a video game, Arcane.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So that to me is really the kind of stuff I want to, you know, get involved with. I'm actually creating a couple of my own shows, not in the sci-fi kind of area like Arcane was, but yeah, Arcane was such a beautifully rendered show that it just started making me go, oh, there's so many applications for this style, because it was kind of like this the inspiration were in many different, like there was a little bit of Norman Rockwell
Right.
esque in the painterly kind of stuff. There was a Spanish painter, God, what's his name? That they totally lifted some of the God, what was that? Mucha, yeah. Alphonse Mucha. They lifted a lot of the interesting kind of Baroque architecture, that steampunk. The only thing I didn't like about it was that there were certain points where everything was so wonderfully integrated with the 3D stuff. And then they would use those old anime tropes where it was like some of the stuff would be 2D.
Yeah.
There were a couple of motion things that were 2D. Some of the smoke was 2D. I was just like, no. Some of the it was really cool because some of it was really the ambience was so cool because it was smoky, but then they would do these 2D renderings of stuff, and I was just like, you lost me, man. But in overall, that was to me like that's where I hope we're going. Did you see the Lupin the first movie?
That's pretty recent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite transitions from 2D to 3D. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it, but if you do get a chance, check it out. They really nailed it.
Hmm.
They really nailed the transformation. It was like um still cartoony, but very richly done in 3D. Everything is textured, just, so like maybe the skin tones weren't as, like you're not going to see pock marks or anything, but like the fibers and the clothes, it was just so beautifully done that like that's what gets me excited about anime. I know, what did we do? We did some Ghost in the Shell a couple years back, doing Ultraman on Netflix as well too. But yeah, that's what excites me about what's happening in anime because I know that once the software gets to be um, you know, well known and more accessible, where it's not super, super expensive, we're going to see more of that 3D stuff happening.
Hmm.
Because once you can composite something, in 3D, it's basically your puppet in, cyberspace, you can do whatever you want. It's like, they're doing what they're doing on a series basis. They're using the same simplistic stuff to graft these things that they did with the original Toy Story.
Yeah.
But it's like now they're implementing more of the live action actor stuff in it too, which is just insane. So, that's what I think we're going to get to a point where, like the Final Fantasy movies that have come out recently, where it's so photorealistic. I don't know how much of that is going to be pumped out. I think that requires a lot of rendering, a lot of energy to put that stuff. A series like Final Fantasy is ripe for that. That's the best stuff. But I think that the compromise is going to be stuff more like what they did with Lupin.
Hmm.
It's like it's the colors are still poppy. It's more realistic because you have more shading, you have more ambiance with light. But I think that we're going to see more of that, and we're already seeing. I mean, Pixar's been, killing it with that stuff, but their take is a little less, a little more cartoony, a little less proportionately, um, you know, realistic, like some of the Final Fantasy stuff is.
Hmm.
So, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about stuff like that, and original animation. I mean, I'm a Family Guy, South Park. The stuff I'm developing personally are all like original cartoons,
Hmm.
kind of more like the Family Guy stuff, a little raunchy, a little, pushing the envelope stuff. So hopefully I can get something out here within the next year or so to whet some people's appetites because I've been talking about it forever. So, but yeah, man. Anything else you have to
Yeah.
request?
Well, I was gonna just say you probably know about the Bleach coming back.
I don't. No, I do know that it's the 1,000 Year Blood War or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know it's coming out. Don't know if my character's in it.
Yeah,
I think he does. Oh,
Kisuke.
Kisuke. Yes, yes, yes. Kisuke. I was thinking Gin. Um, he's in it, huh?
Yeah, his Bankai finally gets revealed like in the manga. So hopefully in the end.
So maybe I'll be called back.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Again, I didn't originate the dub voice for that. They can go, I wasn't cast as TK in the most recent Digimon Try. So, I have no idea. It'd be cool. I'd love to play with that character a little bit more. It'd be fun. Yeah. Cool, man.
This is I'm sure, has anyone ever talked to you about Nodame Cantabile?
Yes. Yeah, that was an interesting one. I grew up playing a little bit of piano until I was in probably about 4th grade. So it brought back some memories. That's the wonderful thing about anime is that the stories are so all over the place as far as where they get their subject matters from. Who knew that would be a sustainable series, but I just did something else like that. What the heck was it?
Worse to piano.
Yes. Thank you. You need to be my agent, Chris. You know more about what I do than I do. Yeah, so it's an interesting, we just did one that was based on shogi too. These shows that are really specific about that one thing. Prince of Tennis, all about tennis. What did we do? GTO was all about I discovered that. Were you familiar with GTO?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't realize that was based on the guy that originated the Tokyo Drift.
Right.
Did you know that? You probably knew that.
Well,
Because I was like,
that was pretty early in your roles.
yeah,
too.
no, that was probably early 2000s or late 90s. It might have been. Yeah. Yeah, I'm discovering things about stuff I've done years later.
Joe Caramel.
Conrad. Yes. Yep. That was another fun one with Yuri. Yeah, it's always fun when you get to play opposite your friends because you can always, if I record before him, like we'll always, leave him dirty messages in my record. Like I'll lip sync to it with some, message to him. So that's always fun. But yeah, that was an interesting character, that protective kind of fatherly character. I've kind of used that. That's a kind of a little bit of the place where I played Asuhambun and Kayneth. There's kind of that elevated mid-Atlantic kind of voice, kind of that stuck up voice is kind of the best way to describe it. Proper. How's that? Proper. Yeah, that's always fun. And I actually use that to an extent for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for Polnareff.
Right.
That very, proper speak. He was a little bit more bombastic. He was a little bit more, a little more off the rails, but that was that was another fun role. Polnareff and JoJo's. Tony was directing us most of it. Richard, of course, you gotta love Richard. Kyle, Mob Psycho. That was an interesting one.
When did you stop playing Sao P in Dynasty Warriors?
That was a couple years ago. I think they just ended up, they recast everybody. I don't know what the impetus was for it. I'm not positive. They might have gone with a different production team. The original creators of the series or the video games might have changed hands. Who knows? Maybe they were trying to get cheaper voice actors to come in. I don't know. I haven't heard any of the new stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah. It happens. We did a live action series for Netflix called Money Heist.
Yeah.
See that? And yeah, there's a great cast. We recorded it all, but it was recorded apparently incorrectly for live action stuff. And so the audio Netflix was not happy with the way the audio came out. And so as a knee-jerk reaction, they went with another production team to completely redo everything we did.
Oh,
And all new actors too. And yeah, apparently it wasn't as easy as they thought it was. So I've heard a lot of stuff. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. You know, you can't get sour about stuff like that. It's just, it happens.
mhm.
So,
Well, I guess, are there any other things that you're part of that are upcoming that you can safely talk about? Or
working on a new season of Deer Squad. That's on Nickelodeon. I play Sir Steel, which is the little jerk bad guy. He's my closest, I would say, a very obnoxious Eric Cartman. And then I'm doing another thing for I don't think I can really talk about it quite yet. There is a show that is going to be coming out on Netflix. It's based on I would say the most I would liken it to would be like kind of that Hello Kitty kind of line of toys kind of stuff, that really simple stuff. There's a show coming out hopefully by the end of the year. I don't know, we're still recording it. So but I play kind of the lead character in that. So that's going to be fun. First, I will say this is the first character I've never had to open my mouth to record, to voice.
oh, huh.
I do not open my mouth to record this character because he does not open his mouth ever. So just reaction stuff. So that's what that does. But that'll be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. Really cute. What else? Lupin has just been released. 6, I think. Or no, it's coming out, I think, maybe on the 16th.
And then there's like a Lupin versus Detective Conan thing.
Yes, that came out recently. Oh yeah, we did a interesting one called King's Raid. I think that was released. Yeah, that was a fun. I got to play the bad guy in that. A little bit of a jerk, always fun. Suppose a kid from the last Dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, Darthan, I think, is that
Mirthafon? Yeah, he was fun. Yeah, most of the stuff that is coming out I can't talk about.
okay.
So. But I'm I've got pretty packed schedule, so I'm working on some video game this week. I have no idea what the hell it is. They're like, hey, you want to come back in and reprise your role? I'm like, sure, what was my role? They're like, just come in. So,
Well,
but Chris, thank you, man.
Yeah,
you helped jog my memory. Now I can kind of remember some of the stuff I've done.
Well, my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
To be a really good dad and to have entertained people. That's really it.
Mm-hmm.
If any of the characters that I've done have helped people through, times of darkness, times of sadness, if people can get a little bit of light from some of the stuff I've done and feel good about themselves, that's what it boils down to. That's why, I used to be very self-conscious about going to conventions because I didn't feel like, why would somebody want my autograph? Why am I worth somebody paying me money for my autograph? And my perspective has completely changed, because what I found is that going to these conventions and being able to, share just a brief moment with some of the fans and recognize how impactful these shows can be, that's what it's worth now. That's really, for me, just being able to be there. It's I was speaking with another voice actor that she didn't do a lot of conventions either. She's pretty well known. I said, this is really therapy. And I'm like, not just for me and you, but it's for everybody that comes here, because they're able to connect with either a childhood memory that made them feel good. We've become their surrogate family when, mom and dad were too busy and they had to throw the switch on the TV or, the iPad or whatever. And so being able to be a part of people's lives is the reward.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. and to mean something to somebody. That's really what it comes down to. So if anything, my legacy, I want it to be that in the anime stuff that I've done, that I've touched people's lives. In my own creative stuff, personally, I want to be the creator of my own shows and my own films. So that is my ultimate goal for my own life. For the anime journey, just knowing that people love the stuff that we do, that's the reward. You know. So
I do have my own story about that. When I was in 4th grade, one night, me and my family were just out to eat at a restaurant that we went to all the time, and we were about to leave, and then we were told that nobody can leave. And then like 5 minutes later, there were heavily armed police officers that came in and told everyone to huddle into both of the bathrooms and turn all the lights off, because there was a guy who shot 2 people and crashed his car outside the restaurant and was trying to get inside. And so we all had to stay there until 1 a.m. and get individually escorted to our cars. And at that same time, that's when I discovered the dot hack and the Xenosaga games. So I know with how young I was, I wouldn't have been able to get over it any other way. So just thanks for being part of that.
Wow, that's intense, man.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we just need mindless escapism to kind of clear our heads of the nuts that this life and world gives us, you know. So thank you for using us as a tool to help you get through that, because that's really what it is. We're put on this planet to help each other out, and however we can do it, I'm happy that we can.
Well, thanks. This was really fun.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And thank you for hunting me down. I know it wasn't easy. You're probably like, who does this guy think he is, not responding to me on Messenger? Like, don't feel bad. My family doesn't even get that. So. Okay. Chris, thank you, sir. You have a great rest of your weekend, and can't wait to see what this turns out to look like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.